Happy Holy Day, Moors.
Happy Holy Day.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming out and tuning into the House of Reawakening Minds as we strive to be a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Please note, the views, opinions, and services expressed or offered by guest lecturers are those of the lecturers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of House of Reawakening Minds. I want to welcome you here again tonight, and our illustrious lecturer, National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey. Let's receive him.
Now, subject matter tonight is governmental platforms operating in diametric opposition on North American soil. And it's very important because one of the things that we talk about with a lot of conversations we have with people around the country, and a few people, on across the borders in other countries like in England, America, Japan, and Puerto Rico. Most of some of our correspondents come from them. Some from Denmark too, where people are asking certain questions about the dynamics that are taking place in North America. Keep in mind that the political platform that operates in North America affects the world. And I think one of the things that I recognize is a lot of the Moors in North America, particularly those operating under the Black and Negro brand system, are not only not aware of the real politics, but are not aware that other nationals around the world are paying close attention to what we do and what we say. And I think in many ways our people have been minimized to such a degree that they don't recognize their own importance. Of course, we are ignorant to the negative for not knowing the real politics. Nevertheless, it doesn't remove the fact that we're the heirs to the world's largest estate. And most of the problems that the other nation states are suffering is because the European Khazarians, Romans, have been launching their wars against humanity and the human family and the earth from North America since we've been under occupation. And so the other issue is people needing to understand that with the status of what you call a liberated people or free people, distinguished from people who are considered serfs or what you call chattel property, that the language that they use in relationship to both the institutions that operate in government and to themselves will almost immediately distinguish what their status is, their choice of words. And when many Moors in accord with their duties and responsibilities as nationals of the land, carry out their fundamental civic duty of enforcing the Constitution, and of course many Moorish Americans who become active participants in the Moorish Divine and National Movement, the Old Canaanite Temple, the Moorish Temple of Science, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and the Moorish Science Temple of America, it is their duty from the beginning of their sojourn to enforce the Constitution. And of course, that deals with the judicial powers in relationship to those things that would concern, judicial matters, and including uncomfortably some what you call extra judicial activities. And these things are civic and social duties. And what I discover, even with some conversations that we have, as a matter of fact, Dr. Nailah was informing us of a few issues that we're dealing with, etc. And I recognize that very often people are not cognizant of their social and civic duties, and they often look expectantly for others to do certain things that they are responsible to do themselves. And so again, this is another reason why we're doing this, because those distinctions must be made. All right? Now, the diametric opposition, that means they're like opposites. And many of the people are not even aware that you have opposing governmental operations on the land. And there's been an assumption out of ignorance and, of course, miseducation that the persons who have been running government at North America are legitimate, which they are not. They are de facto and they're imposters. And you see these dates here, pre-March 27, 1861, and it doesn't remove the reality that you have people operating with the intent of misprision. However, in general, the government was operating in accord with constitutional principles up to that date. That date of March 27, 1861, when the Congress for the United States at North America did a coup d'etat, which they call Congress adjourned sine die, and of course, as you already know, later assassinating Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln, by law and by rule of law, was the last lawful president for the United States in accord with the Constitution. And most people are not aware of that. And so most of the concepts that people have about government, about the executive branch of government, about the legislative branch of government, about the Congress, are totally wrong. Since 1861, after March the 27th, the persons who claim to be congressmen are actually private kingship oligarchs, knowingly, by plot and by plan, and operate accordingly. Are we clear? They are really board of directors for the private corporate entity called the United States Service Corporation that was bankrupted in 1860 by Lincoln. Lincoln bankrupted it deliberately when he recognized that the operators of the platform, which was registered in France, were undermining the Republic and using him to do it because he also had to run on that political platform. Now, much of what I just said, you already know. But right now, we're dealing with, language. We're dealing with concepts. And so, as the people become conscious of what's going on, their language must change also because, and this is fact, because the nations of the earth have been meeting for these last few years, and even some of the allies for the United States Service Corporation company, whose number one ally is Germany. And then second to that is France. They're even in what you call negotiated conflict in the background with them, because they betrayed even their closest allies, less more the people of the land at the north. And so this is to remind all of us of our social duties, and also to share with everyone a synopsis, and it's not limited to this, to look at fundamentals of what you would look at proper governing operations at North America, de facto and de jure. De jure would be what you would call legitimate, right and proper, harmonic with constitutional principles. De facto is fraud, imposters, treasonous operations, etc., exactly the opposite. The problem with most of the people in relationship to what they think they know about government at North America, they have not been aware that they've been dealing with imposters since 1861. And most of the economic problems that have been taking place in targeted neighborhood of the nationals, like for instance, the bombing in Tulsa, Oklahoma, what they tag falsely as Black Wall Street, the bombings there, the destruction there, Greenville, North Carolina, all of these continuous domestic wars, bombings from the Klan and from the dark side of Illuminati, Skull and Bones, etc., against the Asiatics of the North, etc. All of those are unum sanctum operations, and all of them have their root in this coup d'etat that took place in 1861. Are we clear? And so it relates to us, and many of our people, by not knowing the history, don't know that these things relate to us. Even coming up to what is commonly talked about today in more contemporary times, with things done by Woodrow Wilson administration, with the setting up of the Federal Reserve system, the Inquisition operations, which they call Internal Revenue Services, etc., 1913, 1916, the converting of all allodial titles and aboriginal titles to mortgages and deeds, 1913, all these things are strategic. They all have their root not only in the Unum Sanctum, but in your passage of chronological activities that the March 27, 1861 coup d'etat is totally related. One of the interesting things that our people need to be aware of is that the necessity, one of the great necessities of the different secret societies, school societies, etc., Typos, Ku Klux Klan, White Familia, Illuminati, Skull and Bones, Knights Templars, Knights of Columbus, etc., it's a known fact that many of these orders in their chambers wear the Moorish fez. And in some of them wear the wigs that imitate the Moors, and they refer to themselves as wiggle Moors, etc. It is because the conquest of the Moors is the foundation of the entire contemporary world's politics, the economic system, and everything else. And at the root of why secret societies exist is for the heirs of the world's greatest estate not to find out their bloodline, not to find out that they're heirs, not to find out the truth about North America, which is Masonically referred to as the North Gate, and Shriners refer to themselves as the keepers of the North Gate. In other words, they're controlling the estate of the Moors. And so the miseducation of our people is not accidental, it's by design. And it will continue until those who know the truth come out from under Rome and just simply tell the truth. It is not unknown truths. It is simply the fact that it is at the root of the politics and the economic systems, and those who have been beneficiaries of the false platforms are not willing, politically logically, to expose the truth, because all of their economic systems, their UST bonds, which were predicated on Moors, who they granted back since the commercial mercenary war that they call the Civil War. All of these things will collapse, which they're starting to collapse now anyway, because the nations of the world are no longer buying or accepting UST bonds. And a lot of the politics that you see taking place on the planet today has everything to do exactly with that, what I just said. Whether they're talking about dinars or reset and everything, all of that is really predicated on the fact that the world is turning against the United States. It's not a country. It's a private corporation that took over Morocco and has been falsely perpetrated as the country since 1861. And so our job, being Moorish Americans, i.e. conscious, are to share this information with the unconscious and make them know, and also to encourage them to take responsibility to do this to themselves, their families, their forefathers, and their children to come. Because as Rome is aware that the world of nations are not accepting their T-bonds, they're liquidating anybody's estate as quickly as they can that got a mortgage. This is why you see the gentrification taking place, like in Philadelphia, on a major scale, in any major city, in any what you call crime land. You will see them all over this country claim to be broke, but you'll see more boom cranes in all over this place than you've ever seen. And if they can find a hole, they're putting a big building on it. Oh yes, and they're gentrifying the communities. Now the deal of it is, while these transitions are being made politically and economically, those who are aware of the politics the real politics, has more of an opportunity to deal with their own spiritual flaws, meaning that the work that we have to do with ourselves, that no one else can do. And of course, that energy projected in the atmosphere with our spiritual healing, what you would call, spiritual healing, is actually what really is the cure for the Roman onslaught. It's not going to be hot fire. It's going to be the change or the rebirth of the mind. And of course, you can't, the culture is in the language, and people are going to have to be aware of their language to change the energy that they project. And so again, this is why we're having this lesson. And so we're going to go through this short treatise. We're going to go through this short treatise, and then any questions that arise from it, we'll address those questions. And if there's any questions, we want you to put them on the mic too.
Turkey just took all the gold out of the United States Federal Reserve.
Oh,
The
yes.
banks took the gold from out of the United States Federal Reserve, and it says because they're going with China and Russia now on a war against the United States economically.
Let's put it this way. The United States Corporation, which is not a country, but has been operating from North America. These things must be put in perspective. When people are looking at the United States as a country being set upon by other countries, their concepts are wrong. Are we clear? North America is Morocco, the heartland of the Moroccan Empire. All right. It's been under occupation, what's called European colonial occupation. And for the people of the land, their concepts are wrong by design because they've been under occupation. The Europeans know all of this is necessitated by them being induced or inducted into secret societies. Generally, just generally referred to as Mason, which would cover generally all of those secret societies. And of course, they wear the Moorish crown, which is called, among them, Tierra Sol, or crown of the sun, which it is. But again, the politics that you see taking place is because the Jesuit order, through the Khazarian operations under the Federal Reserve, General Board of the Federal Reserve, and the International Monetary Fund, etc., and the United Nations are essentially shell corporations of the United States. That must be understood. All of them are shell corporations for the United States. They just use different names. All right? And they've been using those platforms to undermine all the countries of the world so they can rule the world. They're not waging war against them. They've been waging war against humanity and the world since they came to the Lord. That must be understood. Are we clear? So when you structure your questions, always think the United States is a corporation. The United States is a corporation, not a country. As soon as you start thinking it's a country, it muddies the whole water. Your concept is wrong. Then you start defending it. Are we clear? When it's actually an imposter platform. This is again why we must understand this. Now, hold your question, and then we're going to read these first couple paragraphs, and then ask your question again with more clarity. All right? Governmental platforms operating in diametric opposition on North American soil. That title is deliberate, the way you see it written. Demonstrated by comparing United States Republic truths versus U.S. democracy frauds. So we want to look at this thing from the perspective of truth and falsehood. Real fiction. All right? Now these are facts, and this relates to how we need to start thinking and talking to help solve this dilemma that's plagues the human family right now in the planet. De jure versus de facto. pre-March 27, 1861 versus post-March 27, 1861. This short treatise is predicated upon the principal facts that the nationals and the citizens of any nation state are obliged to uphold and to support the organic constitution. The ancient principles, sometimes referred to as maxims, that are rooted therein are primal to civic studies and to civilization at large. United States Corporation Company, Corpus Juris Secundum. Get used to that because you all need to be familiar with those sets of volumes. And they're, of course, they're expensive, but you need to put this back into your vocabulary and your knowledge base as a reference point for research, too. Corpus Juris Secundum is an encyclopedia of United States law at the federal level and at the state level. Corpus Juris Secundum is comprised of 164 volumes, 5 index volumes, and 11 table of cases volumes. These volumes comprise over 430 topics which are arranged into subheadings for ancillary supports, for references, and for general research purposes. Get grounded in this, and you're pretty much grounded in constitutional principles, whether you're dealing with res judicata or stare decisis, which means established law, whether you're dealing with cases, etc. Principles that cannot be contested. They need not be litigated, it is established, are we clear? And so when you talk to stare decisis and res judicata, these are principles in law or cases referenced in law that no court under the United States or no operators under the courts can contest it or debate it, meaning they're locked in. Are we clear? Our people need to be aware of these things so that they can start protecting themselves and their families. Their ignorance is costly. And logically, people who have been benefiting from their ignorance, whether they belong to secret societies or not, don't want our people to know these things because they have been sucking, leeching off the virtues of our people for generations, and our people have become, in the mind, minimized, or they have what you call self-esteem problems, and they actually think that these people with the wealth are superior to them, not recognizing that these people's wealth actually belongs to them. And they're actually contesting, or I say they're looking at their benefactors with contempt. And our people are calling it, because they say so, racism and prejudice, when it's really unum sanctum, policy enforcement, and doctrine of discovery. Now the deal is, and the purpose of this lesson, or this short treatise, in harmony with what we always do, is before you can liberate a people economically and politically, you must liberate them mentally. If they're not liberated mentally, you will never aid them in liberating them, because they really must liberate themselves. You know, and so what we try to do is give them documented facts, and then give them support concepts or ancillary concepts with it in a proper perspective or in a faceted light that actually harmonizes with what's really going on, so that they can decide for themselves pro or con. Because we got to remember also, these are the dynamics also. Many of our people don't want our people liberated. And many of our people do not want to render under Caesar before the Caesars. You got to recognize that too. But in war, there's casualties. So you don't take, you got to look at it this way. Looking for the good of the generations that come. Looking for the honor of the generations that were lost before us, who were sacrificed by the Romans, pretending to be Americans and pretending to be white people. And things must be put in perspective, so that those who are honorable on both sides can come to the table and start solving these problems, whether they're Europeans or Asiatics. But logically, the Europeans have been beneficiaries of the false platform for so many generations. Most of them have a tendency to maintain the democracy lie. However, a few of them are starting to tell the truth about the history and about the republic. And for those who have been subjected by this misinformation, those are the ones that we're actually reaching out to because we know that the politicians, Masons, Eastern Star, Knights Templars, Kuykers, Ku Klux Klan, Daughters of American Revolution, Knights of Columbus, they all know this. All of them know this, including 99% of all of your Christian ministers who are 32-degree Masons pretending they don't know these people are Moors. And most of them got a 501c3 skull and bones agreement. You know, and that's not condemning them personally, just telling the truth like it is. And the deal is, the job of most of these people who've been benefiting from our people's miseries really do not want this information out. They really don't. Because once you liberate the mind, it's sort of like you can physically open a fence and a person in servitude don't recognize you go outside the gate. The same thing operates in the mental scale. If they really actually believe the United States is a country, they will defend it because they think it's their country. They don't know it's a private corporation registered in France, 1754 by Benjamin Franklin, that Lincoln bankrupted because the platform was being used to undermine the republic. This is aside from the fact that he ran on that platform. And all of your common negative politics that have been taking place since the 1800s is predicated on that coup d'etat. That is a fact. And so the more that our people understand these fundamentals, and the more that they're cognizant of things that they say or don't say, the better we can make it more outcomes, which means not as many people are going to be lost. But the fact that a lot of people are going to be lost or disappear is a fact, and we can't stop that. What we can do is limit by telling the truth that others are hiding, forgotten, and oath not to reveal. So, United States, discernment, distinction, and particularly specifically are primal considerations to be taken into serious regard to one's need of being very clear about the multiple meanings and applications of the political metaphor United States, quote unquote. In order to bring some clarity to the issue at hand, we will use one of the basic scholar tools and acknowledge its ancillary function in jurisprudence studies. That literary tool of note is Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary. The following definitions for the United States are derived from the deluxe 4th edition, containing definitions of the terms and phrases of American and English jurisprudence, ancient and modern. Black's Law Dictionary, United States. This term has several meanings. United States may be merely the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns, in the family of nations. United States may designate territory over which sovereignty of the United States extends, or the United States may be collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution, and they give you law case for reference. Now you notice that the word may, which means it's not definitive. That's not accidental, that's deliberate because they know that the word is misused, misplaced, and even there with the explanation, they're not telling you at all. Are we clear? But it's upon you to do the research and to recognize that it is not a country. Are we clear? Now that's law. Now, specificity is important when one meets an occasion of having to interchange or to interface with a man or woman who claims to have delegated authority over your properties, liberties, or over your estate. Always be wary of anyone who is exercising governmental powers. Again, we take an excerpt from Black's Law Dictionary. United States officer, usually and strictly, the United States statutes. United States officer is a person who is appointed in the manner declared under the Constitution, set at Article 2, Section 2. Are we clear? So everything is measured by constitutional principle. Now, if this is where you look at always what is called delegated authority. If the office is not delegated under the Constitution, the office by law doesn't exist. Are we clear? Now, while that is not saying that, you're supposed to use your jurisprudence reasoning to recognize that. And so these subtle ancillary support thoughts and civic concepts is why civics should be taught to children starting in about the third degree. But it's also why civics is no longer taught in school, because these people are put into what's called a negative or black status, a dead civil or II status. Now, the unfortunate thing that also rides on that is that the parents are pretty much ignorant to these things, and so they can't teach the children because they've been trained or miseducated under the Christian black codes, and their concepts are totally incorrect. And yet they go out and vote, and they go out and pay taxes, and they don't even know that their votes don't count. Never did. Never did. They don't even know that when they transact business in the European names, that the vote that they call a vote is used as a consensus for party competition, not for sanctioning anything for the people at all. And they actually use the vote as a consent, not a vote, as a consent for continuation of the United States Service Corporation oligarchs self-serving themselves and carrying out the continued operations of Unum Sanctum. This is also why and how and the basis upon which all banks are run and how all mortgages are operated, even the debt pledge principle upon which the mortgages are actually constructed, and particularly since 1913 under the Woodrow Wilson administration. Now, an example of stare decisis law may be found and examined in the Supreme Court decision rendered in the case of the United States versus Marion, see Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 20, subsection 1785. The United States is a foreign corporation. You see? Now, this is in law now, but you already know they're not going to teach this in school. And Masons know this, but Masons will tell you about signs and symbols and will not tell you bluntly this truth, because they have oath to Rome. New York Ray references Marion, and then you have these when you see the enumerations, they will deal with volumes and subsections and code books so that you can trace them. So I won't read all of them. Just recognize that those are case references. All right, and whenever you see Supreme Court, you already know that's a stare decisis. So it's indisputable. So you can see the United States is not only a corporation, it's a foreign corporation. Now, once you understand that, your concepts should immediately change on anything that you deal with the corporate states when they say the United States versus you. In any court case, you already know that that's a foreign body of corporate persons dealing with human trafficking, because they have no proper jurisdiction to address you. And if they did, it would have to be in an Article 3 court, which would be a consular venue predicated on diversity of citizenship, which is also called diversity of nationality. Article 3, Section 2. Read for yourself.
Wow.
Now, these established laws and facts have always been known and are still known by all federal and state and local politicians and pseudo-officers. You notice pseudo-officer? You never call them officer. If you call them officer from what you call a trust position, for that purpose at that moment, that would be called a trust statement. They accept the position and then exercise the power. So you must not, you got to get out of the habit of calling people out of their names and calling them out of their office. Now remember, 1861. After that, there's no lawful officers being held. None. Now, keep in mind, the people of the land have an obligation to enforce the Constitution and the treaty. And the fact of the matter, the representatives among them were put in power to make law and to enforce law. We don't have to say they've been doing that because we know they have not. But we're making you aware of your responsibilities. Are we clear? And so, a lot of things that we expect the Europeans to do, it is actually our responsibility to do. Logically and factually, due to miseducation and the European controlling most of our lives and our families, our people not only haven't been on these subject matters, they've been totally remiss in their responsibilities, not even knowing they have this responsibility. They don't even look at it as a responsibility, yet it is a responsibility and a duty. And we have been negligent in our responsibilities to ourselves and to enforcement of the Constitution, which logically includes the treaty, Article 3, Article 6, etc. Now, the established laws and facts that have always been known and are still known by all federal and state and local politicians and pseudo officers, such knowledgeable persons include, but are not limited to, presidents, congressmen, senators, legislators, governors, mayors, city councilmen, professors, teachers, political science students, municipal officers, industrialists, and by basic and elementary civic standards, other erudite scholars. And those other erudite scholars would include Masons, Eastern Stars, etc. And what I'll do, I'll add that in there later so that, people don't have to assume the etc. I just don't want to, go along with this. Because you can make a long list. And our people keep thinking that these people don't know all the crap that we're going through. They're thinking that because no one speaks about this stuff publicly, that they're not aware of these things, and they absolutely are aware of these things. Now, the Soldier's Training Manual. Now, many of you are familiar with this, but get familiar with this again because it's very important that you not be unfamiliar with it so that you can make comparatives. Now, the United States War Department, November 30th, 1928. All right? TM 2000-25, 118 to 120, democracy. And remember, all politicians and soldiers are trained that this is the war manual, this is the War Department. So when you think that the politicians and the military don't know these, don't know what they're doing when they're going in other people's countries, forcing democracy, that they're actually committing an act of war, and they know they're doing an act of war. And this is back, brother, when you was talking earlier about Russia and China and the United States. Remember, they all know this. They already know that these people know that they've been waging war on us and the planet, appearing to be innocent and playing innocent while they've been destroying people's lives and destroying people's countries and robbing their gold and everything else. And then acting like they're innocent and everybody's against them, little Christian crap. Because they're Christians, everybody's against them. Nobody even asked them. But they're playing this victim game. Answering the question that nobody asked back then. Well, yes. Now, remember, this is the manual. This is the war manual. This is documented. This is their training. A democracy is a government of the masses, authority derived through mass meeting or any other form of direct expression. Results in mobocracy. Attitude toward property is communistic. This is where they keep claiming people's property. And the gentrification, this is what is done under the democracy platform, that people think is the legitimate government, but it's actually the de facto government. Results in mobocracy, attitude towards property is communistic, negating property rights, Woodrow Wilson. Attitude towards law is that the will of the majority shall regulate. The people call that prejudice. whether it be based upon deliberation or governed by passion, prejudice, and impulse, without restraint or regard to consequences, results in demagogism, license, agitation, discontent, anarchy. So what you actually have is anarchy in government, and they know they're operating in anarchy. But they know that these people have been trained like little rats. They call them boys and girls and stuff like that. They do. You know, because they operate with that mentality. And they tell them that the Constitution set up a democracy when even a child in the 3rd grade reads the Constitution, and it's a republic, and republic order of government under the Constitution. And a child recognizes that there's a conflict, but the parents, in their ignorance, force these belief systems on the children, and logically they grow up with their minds messed up and also being subject because they keep agreeing to false platform. Now, Training Manual 2000-25, 120 to 121, Republic. A republic's authority is derived through the election by the people of public officials best fitted to represent them. Attitude towards property is respect for laws and individual rights and a sensible economic procedure. Attitude towards law is the administration of justice in accord with fixed principles and established evidence, with strict regard to consequences. A greater number of citizens and extent of territory may be brought within its compass. Avoids the dangerous extreme of either tyranny or mobocracy, results in statesmanship, liberty, reason, justice, contentment, and progress. Now, that's the training manual. Now, do you know how many of our people will sit up and make statements that their council people and the mayors and the sheriffs don't know this stuff? Just because they themselves are ignorant. They assume that the rest of the world is ignorant. But yet our communities and our people keep losing because they're being set upon by these demons from the demon platform called the democracy. And it's really what was set up in 1861. And to hide it, and to hide or to distract the people off of what's really going on, they promote the race and prejudice argument as a diversion. Masons, Easter Star, Knights Templars, Knights of Columbus, Typos, Ku Klux Klan, everybody knows it but our people. And our people are sitting around talking about people are different crayons, like boys and girls. They don't even know what nationality is. They don't even know what international law. They never read a constitution. They don't even know fundamental language, but they're going to tell you about Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, the Bible, when God's going to kick the devil's butt on Thursday, Sunday, bite, and all of these things really, and have no idea of politics, and keep getting destroyed. You know, economically flattened. They have no estates except they don't know anything about trust or estates. And the IRS keeps taking or putting all of our property in probate at every opportunity. And it continues. And so this is to make people aware of what they're operating with, what they do with this information. They can't say they have not been told. And they didn't have to pay those thousands of dollars for these degrees and take no blood oath to the Pope of Rome under the Jesuit order, under their lodges, and then pretend that they don't know this. Because this is given to the common people open without allegorical story, straight up and on the square. But they need to know it's their birthright. Now, as an example in consciousness and to measure proper concepts of what legitimate government is not, or should be, we shall give examples of opposites. This is the Diametric oppositions. These following words, law terms, and phrases should supplement the idea of looking at or viewing that which is real as opposed to that which is fake. Are we clear? These will give you opportunities. Somebody's phone, you talk about the storm. Yeah. Whenever one encounters anyone who commands or exercises or uses the sovereign powers vested only in legitimate government, one should be keen to consider constitutional truth as opposed to that which is false. Always enforce the organic Constitution for the United States of America. The United States, all capital letters, and the United States Incorporated, all capital letters, and the U.S. democracy are distinct, a foreign for-profit corporation. These corporate entities have been and are controlled by private foreign owners, operators, representatives, administrators, assigns, trustees, board of directors, agents, and contractors, etc. These owners, beneficiaries, and representatives are foreign agents, mostly unregistered. These are also facts that you want to consider whenever you have any legal issue with any of them. Municipality, under rule of discovery, also command that they produce their registration number as a foreign agent. This is how you start putting brakes on them. You got to start asking the right questions, because they assume jurisdiction until you show that you know better. Because any right that you don't claim, they consider you waived it. Yes, if you don't claim it, their consideration is that you waived it. This is again why we do these things at House of Reawakening Minds, because we need to reawaken the minds of the people to things that they are actually responsible for, that they think is somebody else's responsibility. This is your responsibility as nationals and citizens to enforce that Constitution. So these owners, beneficiaries, and representatives are foreign agents, mostly unregistered, doing business at North America and upon organic American soil. These foreign entities, via their owners and representatives, should be addressed accordingly. Are we clear? And so when you encounter them, or they encounter you because they're constantly stealing from the people. Remember, because the democracy platform was set up to rob the people. So you don't have to encounter them. They will encounter you. So you must be prepared to deal with them judicially and extrajudicially at all times. You need not learn to argue race and prejudice. You need to learn constitutional principles, because that's where our failure is. Are we clear? Now, the foresaid presentments are established and provable facts, in which such facts being supported by documents, public records, and by international law. These foreign persons, owners, and their corporate entities are in fact and in law misrepresented before the natural peoples of the land, and are impostors, impersonators, acting and taxing while being an imitation government. Are we clear? This is also facts that you need to bring to bear whenever they're arguing with you on an issue talking about dual tax. You know, and most people, when you don't know that they're not government and that they're imposters, your whole argument will change, won't it? That makes the difference between you winning the case and losing the case. Status. Are we clear? Now, so it's misrepresented before the natural people of the land. They are imposters, impersonators, acting and taxing while being an imitation government. The same entities and persons are colored, de facto, fictitious, a collective artifice, and a curio of cabal instituted operations. Opposing and comparative words, law terms, and phrases. Get used to these. United States Republic.
U.S. democracy.
Versus U.S. democracy.
Yeah.
These are diametric oppositions. The first line, or the first column, is true, real, factual, lawful, constitutional, legitimate. The second column is illegitimate, fake, fraud, de facto. Are we clear? These are to give you comparatives so that when you're creating writs or affidavits that your language does not cross the fence. Are we clear? If you have an allodial argument, or what you call an argument for freedom, and you mix in colored language, you would be declared incompetent. Are we clear? This is another reason why these things are being enforced with us, and why certain areas of linguistic resentment we are redundant in. Because much of this, if the people fix much of this, a lot of the other problems will fix themselves. Culture is in the language. We cannot forget that. Are we clear? And this is also for many of you who come to Abdullah Talib Mosi Bey's class, understand the importance of etymology. Allodium versus feudal and fee. This is a lot of times when you're doing allodial cost schedules for a tort that we tell Moors, they'll say, oh, I did a fee schedule. That's contradictory. You know, so fees come under feudal law. And the republic is not feudal. The republic is under allodial. Whereas under the republic, your rights and your property are recognized. Under feudal, they are not. Are we clear? Constitutionally lawful, constitutionally unlawful. So look at these columns as verses. De jure versus de facto. Domestic versus foreign. Constitutionally true and valid versus constitutionally false and misprision. Natural versus artificial. Actual and real versus prima facie. Right law, constitutional. Color of law, unconstitutional. Gold and silver coins versus private commercial paper, fiat. Cosmology, astrology, true religion versus dogmata, dogma. Trustor, trustee versus spofer. Yet they serve the same purpose. These things must be understood. Rights versus privileges. Lawful money, American Constitution. Fiat, Federal Reserve counterfeit. Prosperity versus peonage. Statesmanship versus demagogism. Liberty versus license. Justice versus discontent. Contentment and progress versus anarchy. Reason versus agitation. Just versus unjust. Maghreb, Morocco, the most extreme west. Geography is the science, is the science that deals with and delineates or describes the Earth's surface and its life. It gives descriptions to the land or of the land, the sea, the air, and of the distribution of plant life, of animal life, and of man, and of the industries related to man. And so within the discipline we call it geography. So within this discipline, actually, we call it geography. We recognize the geographical areas wherein we note areas which come under the hereditary rights or jurisdiction of countries or of governmental authorities related to a governing body politic of a nation or country. When we as a people of the land or as scholars give reference to the historically known territorial lands of the ancient Moabites, we find that the archaic allodial and inherited lands of our foremothers and forefathers were called Amexem. That includes South Asia, Tarik, which is now contemporarily referred to as the continent Africa, located geographically on the eastern side of the planet. We, the direct descendants of the ancient Moabites, our forebears, are known in the modern and contemporary times as Al-Moroccans or Americans, and by the shortened attribute of Moabites by the name Moors. The historical geographical And international records have shown that the western hemisphere of the earth, namely North America, Central America, and South America, including the adjoining islands, Americana, are anciently called Mexico. This established geographical truth stands that Northwest Mexico, Northwest Africa, North America are territorially and terrestrially one and the same. The geopolitical and de jure jurisdictional truth is that North America, the North Gate, is our Moroccan territory. This is established fact, despite the artificial reconstruction of historical records as imposed upon humanity. These four set attributes are the associated geographical territories which are known meteorologically as Maghreb, Morocco, the most extreme west, and cosmologically designated as the North Gate. Many natural people who have been subjugated by colonial European miseducation have been led to believe that Maghreb only applies to the name given to Wednesday Salah or Salat prayer, consisting of specified body positions, prostrating and sitting as assigned by established Muslim customs. These rituals are performed after ablution, ceremonial washing. However, such limited information about the attribute named Maghreb served the social engineers and usurpers as a tool for promoting disassociation among the natural people from the contemporary European Inquisition occupation of Alvaradian American lands. Northwest Ordinance. The Northwest Ordinance is formally an ordinance set forth for the government of the territory on American soil at North Alvarado, North America, under the jurisdiction of the United States. The territory of note is comprised of the geographical land areas now known corporately as the land northwest of the River Ohio. The Northwest Ordinance was also known as the Ordinance of 1787, which was an act of Congress of the Confederation of the United States, and that act was passed into law July the 13th of 1787. These covenant trustees are also known as the Confederation Congress. Always distinguish the contemporary political operations of the United States as a political body politic and distinct from the organic land. The land northwestern Mexico, Northwest Africa, North America, the North Gate is designated that which is organic, tangible, physical, concrete, and real, and the geographical heartland of the Moroccan Empire. The United States is a contemporary and legal construct created by contractual agreement and documented on paper for the public record. The greater purpose of the Northwest Ordinance was also for establishing the rules and the conditions for administration of the constituent parts as states into the Union. All right? Now, brother, now go back to the question that you was asking before, and I think you would reconstruct the question after understanding these principles. Because consider your questions are not unlike someone else sitting here or someone who comes in that does not know. And if they didn't know this, the way they would look at that question would not be actually competent. The construction of the question itself, without this knowledge, would actually still be incompetent because they would expect a different answer. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so this is again why it's important for people to know the real politics, because we're going to have to be answering up to these things to actually protect ourselves. Because while in many areas we've been somewhat what we would be considered not necessarily stable, but less touched by the corporate state, that comfort zone is not going to last much longer. And almost everyone will be forced one way or another to have to address these things. Because as the Europeans, via the Khazarians, via their United States corporation operations, is being dismantled, they're attacking other people to try to save themselves, are clear. And so people who think that they have nothing to do with this are going to find themselves under severe pressure. You know, and so it's sort of like as long as people are in their comfort zone, they think they got a JOB, they think they have finance, and they ain't got really either one. Not the concept that they think they don't know that their job is sharecropping. They don't know that the houses that they think they're buying is a sharecropping agreement. They don't know that the popes of Rome even declared their labor under unum sanctum. And so this is again why every time that there's either death in a family or either a sickness, the corporate state immediately jumps in through the barristers and takes the estate into probate and steals most of it or taxes the heirs out of it. And they do it all the time with our people. These people don't even know that these people aren't even the legitimate government. Less more, not knowing that they're actually foreign agencies and agents robbing the people under the U.S. democracy operations. Again, that knowledge also sets up your right thinking in how you would respond to or even relate to any mail coming to you or making any command about a tax. And so if you don't know the status, you don't know the reason they call you a taxpayer, because they just designated you in a classification that you really don't even belong in. And if you don't refute that, they consider that you've accepted it. All right? And so this is back to any right not claimed is considered waived. Are we clear? All right. Now, Dr. Nailah, was there any questions so far, or I'll continue? Furthermore, one must remember that it is an established fact that there are numerous United States corporate entities. Keep that in mind. There are numerous United States corporate entities that were created at different times and which must be distinguished one from the others. Of greater import is that one must never forget that the United States, all caps, is a corporation as distinguished from a sovereign nation or country. However, under political occupation, the administrators or board of directors for the United States have been exercising sovereign powers on the land, North America and Northwest Territories, and with its corporate representatives operating and acting in a de facto posture. Are we clear? You get clear on all that, and most of your writs and affidavits will be structured more correctly. Because every time and any time that they see a flaw in any of your arguments, they will not say it verbally. They will just declare you incompetent, put a barrister on you, and he's an officer of the court, of their private court. And his obligation is to their private court, not to you. And people be thinking that lawyers and attorneys represent them. They represent the corporate state. They are bounty hunters in ties. And you pay them to deliver you. This is why it's called leave. And I suggest everyone look up the issue of leave. Get a very clear understanding of that. Yes, go ahead. Give the mic.
Just one point, in terms of saying the United States, you don't know whether they're saying capital U-N-I.
And this is why you don't assume. When you, as an example, and this is beautiful, and particularly because I'm talking to you. Principle on the very thing that you're stating is why we take nothing for granted, why we do not abbreviate, and why we question everything, and why you do in writs of discovery, rule of order, standard rule of order. If there's an accuser, you never let them assume jurisdiction without the accuser answering up to be reachable for perjury. This is in the order of of understanding jurisdictions. Don't give that up yet. Yeah. In the order of jurisdiction, the issue of the right, if the accuser is not reachable, there is no case to be argued. And yet they do these ex parte actions all the time against our people because they're not taught basic child civics, which should have been taught to them in 3rd grade. And they're abused by the day. Furthermore, now, look at this thing. Furthermore, we're making the distinction so we can see in the spellings. Just like when the Pope wrote the letter to Obama, he made the distinction in the spellings, and you know when the distinction in the spelling, he's not only talking about the different corporations, he's talking about different timelines. Now a person who can read recognizes that. A person who can't read looks at that and all they know is the sound. So is it not the sound when, as an example, and this is why I want to continue with the mic, that when they were taking you under the auction block of the trading venue at Philadelphia, and they said state of Pennsylvania versus the Nailah Pass at Eel, and you stated for the record to the magistrate who claimed to be a judge, you said, are you the state of Pennsylvania? Each one. And I would like to have seen his or her eyes. I wish I was there. But the deal, I could imagine that. And then you ask the prosecutor, was he the state of Pennsylvania? And you ask everybody in the room, was they the state of, and they all said no. What happened with the case?
I got acquitted.
You might?
I apologize. I got acquitted because I did take it to the jury because I said, let me have a jury trial, because it's over $20, all right?
Of course. So it's constitutional, right? It's not your duty to enforce that Constitution? Is that simple? Is that basic?
That's basic.
Constitution, 7 Articles, 10 Bill of Rights. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's not a big story like Empire or Power or stuff like that. You gotta remember no rapper's name, right?
No.
You gotta remember. This is basic stuff that a child should have. And look how many adults that was in that courtroom that same day that you looked at getting enrolled because they don't know the basic supreme law of the land, but they all putting their hands on Bibles and swearing, don't even know that when they swear, they're out of their culture.
That's right.
And this is disgusting because them same people sitting in that court, half of them as Masons and Eastern Stars, know better than watching their own people get rolled.
Yes. Yes.
And all of their so-called black leaders who are 501c3 recipients know. And most of them are Masons, got 32 degrees, got a Moorish pheasant secret with a name of a Moorish lodge named after Moorish women, and come out here and call them people black. They're clandestine. Now, however, we're not going to preoccupy ourselves or argue the point. The issue is our duty and responsibility is to tell people and to do the best we can to get their concepts correct. But it's their responsibility to enforce that Constitution. Every man, every woman, every child must confess their own worship under their own vine and fig tree. And as long as they're going to keep on worshiping under Rome's vine and fig tree using Rome's name, they're going to be subject to the Christian black codes demonstrated by the Dungeon case 1855. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Also demonstrated in the Dred Scott case of 1857, which set a standard. Did it not?
That's right.
All right. But I want to remind you that, so the same principle as we're supposed to be as diligent paying attention to the spellings, because spells are also cast by sounds.
That's right.
So even when they said to people, can you spell? Oh yeah, I can spell. And they'd be looking at them like, And they already know when they're talking to them, they can't spell, yet they're casting spells out of ignorance. And then they accept the jurisdiction, they don't even know if jurisdiction is being accepted. Then they override them, you can't do that to me. And then they keep talking, then they find them in contempt, because they're in contempt, because they're the law. And remember this, and this is very important, when we're looking at the common law. The common law is acknowledged, and as we already know, in the nature of common law and common law enforcement. It trumps the Roman law and the canon law, and of course under the canon laws was the straw man or transmitting utility created in reflection of the QV Act of 1666, and of course through the 14th Amendment, except for the closing of the Freedmen's Bureau, these principles continue, and they set up those Cedars Trust and Sister QV Trust that they use, etc. And so they say a name that verbally sounds like yours, and yet the spelling is different, isn't it? But it is your knowledge of that that made the difference between you walking out of there and then either screwing you or stealing from you under what they call a judicial crime. Is that not correct? And so that's a demonstration of you being cognizant that just because something is sounded does not mean it's referencing what you think it is. And so you must know the difference between the republic and the democracy, the language that's used for both of them. And that under the democracy platform, they encourage people to abbreviate, which means do not pay attention to details. And yet for themselves, they cross all the I's and dot the T's and screw you. They can have a case on you with a couple tickets, and then barristers are coming in with a folder like this, thick. And our people start saying, well, I don't want to go through all that. Well, listen, make it short. Yeah, they short your butt right through the system. And so, again, we have to encourage our people to start taking these things serious because they're at the heart of it. The Europeans are occupiers. They're operating on your estate. This is why they pack the jails with our people, because they are the beneficiaries of the estate. And the corporate state operators are claiming their wealth. And so every time there's a case, whether there's litigation or not, this is fact, they create a bond over there. And that bond goes on the stock market over. Whether the person's innocent or not is irrelevant. And they drag the case out because that bond is running. So isn't it the duty of these so-called black leader guys to stop this black game and tell these people the truth of what's going on? And stop telling them their problem is racism and they need somebody to recognize their color and all this ridiculous and tell them that what's really happening is gloom sanctum. And that's what's happening in that court. It's a bond, and that's the bondage. It's not a chain.
Bondage.
That's the bond. And the spelling of the name indicates whether it's bonded or free. Are we clear? So I just wanted to take that opportunity for the question to bring that up. Because your argument was based on that very principle, on assumptions versus what's really on that paper. Now, under the rule of discovery, you're supposed to have that in your hand anyway. Oh, but you got something you're reading something in relationship to me or my state. You see that? Who copied? Matter of fact, you're not even supposed to be talking to me. I'm supposed to already have that in front of me. And that's how you start messing them up. Just stick with the rules. The rules are called Constitution.
That's right.
Very simple.
Knowing the law and knowing the law.
Is that the supreme law of the land? What are people keep doing going to lawyers? Who don't walk in that place with a constitution, walking there with what? Processes of the Bar Association in violation of House Committee rules. Didn't have a committee report in 1952 telling that these people were overthrowing the republic? All right. That's it. Oh, they
wasn't physically see you. They wouldn't know you.
oh, go back to the,
No, you go on the
No, they want you up on the stage so they can see you.
You say you
right. Now, all right. We got to get these classes back together. Bundes, we're so proud of you going through your work. We heard that you went through your work.
I did.
Oh yes. Let me lay it on the hand. Lay it on the hand.
On my head.
Islam. Yes.
Now, wait, ask questions, whatever questions that may come. Islam, family. Now they want to make the distinction between. Now, slide that up until you on the computer. Slide the computer up to where it says democracy and republic. Yeah, on the computer. Go up. Go up because you're at the bottom. Go up. Go up. Go up. Now that you'll see the training manual. It says TM. Right there. Right there. Now, Dr. Nailah, and you said they wanted to
see you on camera. You weren't on camera. Well, it's all the script. They wanted to see Reggie. They want to know that we weren't recording.
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm in the house. Now, this is point in fact. Point in fact. You and all Moorish Americans must be cognizant that you're in this political platform. Are we clear? Anytime they can get you in this political platform, they got jurisdiction. Are we clear? Now there's an assumption, now keep this in mind, under the Christian black codes, all persons of Asiatic African descent are held under the democracy. Are we clear? So you don't have any rights. Are we clear? You don't have any rights to property. Are we clear? Are we clear? All things are automatically assumed hypothecated, which means they claimed it before you even think you own it. When you're born into it, they already own it. Are we clear? So understanding how they're operating, your consciousness must be active in opposing that. Not in opinion, but in thought and action and deed. Are we clear?
And communication.
And yes, and that is the deed. Failure to do so is considered an abandonment. We know that the arrogance of that position is immoral and unethical. However, the U.S. democracy doesn't operate on morals and ethics. It operates on human trafficking. And the sooner these people get it through their head of what you're dealing with, the sooner you will take responsibility to change your position and study and make yourself competent, because that is where your argument is. That is exactly where it's at. Now, the deal of it is, when you're communicating with them and when they're communicating with you, it is always an offer to get you in the democracy platform. They will not say it directly, though sometimes they say it.
Directly.
Yeah, directly.
But it's implied.
It's implied. And if your conversation does not indicate that you're rejecting it clearly and distinctly and making clear what your actual political allegiance is, meaning like this, you can't say that you're not black without saying afterwards who you are.
That's right.
You know, like a lot of times people, when they're dealing with forms and stuff like that, when the Europeans give them colored forms, and they know there's a jurisdictional argument, and they'll check other, and then not add an affidavit to the instrument, then they put you right back in the black codes.
That's right.
You can't say other without saying specific what that other is, because the other is the gateway. Whenever you see a form, like say if the representatives of the Jesuit order sends you an instrument from the Internal Revenue Services, which is really Inquisition Revenue Service collections for the funds for the Bishopric of Rome, because that's what it actually is. It's a tithe. It's an international tithe, or a forced tithe, a Roman tax. All right. So if they call you taxpayer and you don't reject that, well, I'm not. First of all, let's make this clear. I'm not a taxpayer. It's not my name.
Right.
Not my attribute. Okay? On every point. Number two, you're a foreign, unregistered accounting agent for the foreign bankrupt United States Service Corporation that was bankrupt in 1860 and remade about 4 times and bankrupted again. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. However, you do have obligation under treaty and constitution to give good government on my land. I'm people of the land. You're wearing treaty. So don't act like you don't know, because I know. All right? Northwest Ordinance, Constitution, Treaty. So, and I'm Moorish American. I'm people of the land. Outside of that, you have no jurisdictional claim. And I'm not a U.S. citizen. Make no assumption. You know, in other words, you're making specific, so they'll know what your political allegiance is. But the major thing is that you must place obligation back on them. What they do, they will do under a color or de facto presentment under implied obligation that you are a U.S. citizen and obligated to pay their debts through tax of service, which they give you no service, they just rob you. And they're not the government. They're private oligarchs pretending to be government, particularly since 1861. So when you're looking at any of them and any of the corporate franchisees, i.e. the state of Pennsylvania, state of Delaware, etc., you already know that these political platforms are de facto. Are we clear? Now, for the ignorant, they would imply, oh, you're not paying your taxes. It's not your taxes. It's their private debt that they're robbing you to satisfy their private debt that they created around the world. Are we clear? Now, without having a background in governmental structure, one is not aware of that and it can get caught in the legal, what you would call sanctimonious argument of assumption of jurisdiction under the auspices of an assumption of 14th Amendment citizenship for Negroes, which means monkey citizenship, right? So people who agree to be monkey citizenship under the 14th Amendment have what you call beneficiary obligation, not in statehood, but under what you call privilege. And of course, certain Negro privileges are afforded to monkeys. You know, they're still not part of the human family, but they won't agree to be that, but the European has jurisdiction. Because they agree to be monkeys, being somebody that they're not. And no one makes that specific issue to them. They assume that that means identity because they've been trained by Europeans and other Asiatics that that's African identity. You know, and of course that puts them under the Christian black codes, and there we go in the cycle again. Yes, but go ahead.
Not to get too far off, but you made a reference, 1952, of some lawful document.
This was House. Write this down, you all. How they changed the name to hide it too recently, but that's what it was originally. House Committee Report on the American Bar Association. All right. Now they changed it and put it under another category so that so that people can't do a continuity study. But Tori, I'll make sure that you have that later. I think I did. I think that is in. If it's not in lesson book 14, it's in 14A1. Protocols of Liberty. And it may be also in Misunderstandings of the Moorish Movement. Because in context, it applies in so many areas. But anyway, what it is a committee report, House Committee report on the studies of the American Bar Association. And of course, the known fact of it is they present the moral argument when actually they're real missionary workers to undermine the Republic and the Constitution. Not unlike and in harmony with the democracy platform, which of course they write the semantic jargon for. You know, and this is where they're really attorneys, pretending to be attorneys. You know, and even when we expose that kind of information, it's for clarification for our people. Now, Europeans don't have to worry about it so much because they're protected under the Inquisition hegemony, or what people would call white supremacy doctrine. Whereas certain things that occur with them is only for the service, for the public. Meaning, like, say, for instance, say a European rode their car up the side of the Empire State Building and parked at the third floor window.
Okay.
And then made a left turn and ran over somebody's dog on the way back down.
All right.
Then went around the corner and parked over top of a fire hydrant, not next to it. And a brother just got a parking ticket. He go to jail, and this guy gets community service, and they don't understand why.
Right.
That's what that's really all about. You know what I mean? And our people see it consistently, things like this consistently, and they get confused because they don't understand the status issue, or even the political platform upon which this stuff is actually operating, which is again why we making this distinction.
We label that as prejudice incorrectly.
Yes, but they're told that. You know, just like someone, like someone gives someone, how do you say, arsenic, and just say, all you need now is an aspirin for the headache. You know, they say it, it's not what it is. Poison the water, and then companies buy up the water in different states and then sell the water back to people filtered from the same sinks. It's called spring water. Spend more for water than people gas. But, yeah. They be told, man, gas is high. You get a gallon gas right here, and then they just go on the gas station and buy a thing of water for $3. This gas is high, $2.75.
There you go.
But again, people need to really have a clear understanding in all the areas that we may discuss concerning your rights, taxes, foreclosures. The foreclosures are foregone conclusions when the deal is made from the door, not later. And even, people's concepts on how to even look at these things is incorrect. And the sooner we can get it clear to people what's actually going on, the sooner they will themselves start making voluntary, intelligent considerations about everything they do, and start recording things, and stop dealing with belief systems, and start dealing with mathematics and facts like the rest of the civilized world, and stop suffering under the Christian black codes that they keep agreeing to be black people under. And then calling the European sovereign, which is white man, and then get mad because he acts like a sovereign. We can't continue to be contradictory and not know better. Are we clear? But above and beyond that, we can't continue to allow people among our own who've always known these things to be leader guys and leader girls and keep allegedly representing us while knowing these truths and pretending not to know these things and going through lives sucking our people with tithes and taxes in the name of lords. They never name specifically the Lord, just God and the Lord type thing. But it's really the Lords of London. If that's who they're pledged, it's really true. And the shameful thing is that very intelligent people just don't have the basics in order. Our people are very intelligent. They just don't have the basics. And also because we are creatures of habit. We're social creatures of habit. And so the learning curve in the linguistics that's presented in our communities, we take it as legitimate common talk when we're actually casting spells. And so when they say, can you spell? They mean that too. And so our people think spelling is simply putting letters in their proper sequence, vowels and consonants in their proper sequence, when physically writing, no, it's also when you're talking. And so this is why they want to ask questions. They say, what's your name? Now, we don't know what they're really saying. They just say,
what is your corporation? And is it ours or yours? Now, you don't claim an estate, and you just say, oh, Frida Jones, they just establish a jurisdiction. And it looks like what the sounding board that they have, because it's a Sister UV trust that they have in their hand. And it's all capital letters. As a matter of fact, in order to release some of the karmic debt, they will actually put an instrument in the mail with the Sister UV trust name on it in all capital letters, so that they can say that you were told. And if you answer to that as it is, that's an acceptance of their contract. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Immoral, yes. Unethical, yes. That's how it operates. So what we must do is be diligent, and we must train ourselves to be diligent. Great, brother.
I wanted to say also with that, gotta be careful, because sometimes to not respond properly is passive acquiescence.
Is that, yes. And it still goes back to this principle. A non-response is also considered a default or waiver. And any rights waived is a right waived. And so again, we must really instill among our own a knowledge of rights distinguished from privileges, and it must be part of our knowledge-based culture. And the deal of it is, when you start dealing with knowledge, you have very little space for belief anyway. Because beliefs aren't necessary. They're for children, rabbits, and imbeciles. And people who aren't ready to handle reality. You know, and so such persons are declared in law incompetent anyway. And then persons who are claiming to be the state. Now they throw that around loosely, because when they say state, and the average person will think like when they say state, they're talking about like this the state republic or the state commonwealth, and they're not. They're talking about their private corporate state franchisee under the Roman Curia transferring the estates sanctioned by George Washington to convert the wealth of the Moors into the hands of the Christians. That's what that actually means. And so when they say the state versus you, that's actually what they're saying. Now the only protection that you have is you make sure, like they say, it's like Troy would say to me, well, the state versus you. I said, what state are you talking about? Now, are you talking about state republic? And you name the state, yeah, right. That's part of the union, or you talk about the Roman Curia state, the state of those abbreviated states that all started in the 30s and 40s, and modifying the constitutions of the states into your corporate venue, like your Blackmail, Texas, into the UCCs, 66, 68. Oh, is that what you're talking about? Then at that time the conversation changed, because they know that you know. And this is back to, once you start talking like that, they know that you know. And they'll treat you differently. Why? Because they don't want you liberating these other serfs that are in here that don't know they serfs. You the whole point? And this is why, DA, are you state?
No.
Or that's why they do that shit out. And then once you understand these things, and if we can get our people just to be on top of these basics, so much finance that our people are raped of every day in all of these cities across this country would cease overnight. And that would also, because that's the bleeding of energy. Because the Federal Reserve Notes, which is a private commercial paper, is really bookkeeping entries for then seeing how much energy they drain from the batteries, which the people are considered energy sources, their batteries. So when they're transferring Federal Reserve Notes, they're looking at that as debits, actually on both sides of the pages. And our people think that in ledgering that when they're gaining Federal Reserve notes, that they're gaining wealth. It's a deficit on both sides. It is for bookkeeping purposes only. That's its usage. Never allow it to possession. Are we clear? And while you're going through this transition period, learn how to use it. But don't think it represents wealth. It doesn't. It represents debt. It is, in fact, a debt note. Which is why it says note. A note is a debt instrument. Are we clear? As a matter of fact, when they say a dollar bill, that's an oxymoron. It really doesn't go together.
That's right.
That's like saying pregnantly unpregnant. It's like saying pregnantly unpregnant.
That's right.
All right, wrap your head around that. And it's really the same thing. And they do things like that to really see if the people have the intelligence to read. These are test points. They do test points. It's fine. Give her mic. It's on.
What could be a starting point for one who are starting to learn and understand a new language of being in a proper person?
It's called proper person.
Yeah.
Now, just as we saw when we use those examples of diametric oppositions, tell them to start training themselves in using a thesaurus, and start finding common words that they use and look at the opposites. And then, or what you call synonyms and antonyms and stuff like that. And then start recognizing that a lot of words that they assume to mean one thing really doesn't mean that, and get used to that. And that same principle in what is called connotative linguistics is designed for people who are not in their proper person.
That's right.
When they're talking about brands, as an example, it's a known factor that under British/US corporation, they're one and the same. Don't look at the US and Britain as separate. They are one. All right? Don't look at Britain, US, and Israel as separate. They are one. They're all the same corporate entity, occupying other people's lands. Are we clear? Woo! That's a fact.
That's right.
Now, when you look at the Dred Scott case as a matter of fact, as a matter of interest, the principle in the Dred Scott case, which is used as a landmark case, as the most important slave case ever come before the Supreme Courts of the United States, the argument that was made on his behalf by 3 Europeans and others, the moral argument of slavery being abolished in Missouri territory, stuff like that, and about the Sanford family moving in different territories, etc. The argument in principle was certainly valid and clean. However, plaintiff was in error, meaning that he claimed to be Dred Scott. He was not improper, and so many scholars will look at that case and will not look at the docket that says plaintiff in error. It never dawns on them that he was in error. And they're looking at the morality of servitude, the immorality of it. The fact that slavery being abolished in territorial forms in Missouri, etc., and then crossing state lines, the issue was his status. His status didn't change because he crossed the line. He's not in the proper person. His status is dead wherever he is on the planet. So when our people are operating under the Negro, Black, and Colored codes, which are brand systems set up by German Dutch masters, and particularly heavily propagated by the owners of the East Dutch Pacific Company that came up in Manhattan and all that stuff. And they said that we sold them Manhattan for a string of beads, rosary beads, type thing, meaning that we converted to Christianity and we gave up. All of that's a fraud, but it's a totally immoral argument. But the deal of it is, in law, one can't make a moral or legal argument if oneself is a fraud. In other words, a fraud can't argue a fraud. So you can't be colored and argue a du jour argument. It can't work. And now, of course, because our people have been trained over years that Negro and Black is African identity, they thought it was a nationality, and they use it as if it's a nationality. And so where other civilized people honor their mothers and fathers, if they're from Germany, they're German. If they're from France, they're French. If they're from Iraq, they're Iraqis. You understand what I'm saying to you? Our people think that human beings are crayons. I've got light-skinned, orange-skinned, black girlfriend, and think it's an identity. And then get mad when the civilized world rejects them. The status is dead. That would be called a stateless person, which is functional. Why the Europeans put their family names on defeated Moors, so that whatever they buy or sell with the mark or the number of that name is state property. And this is why so-called blacks and people of color are referred to commonly as wards of the state, irregardless of what their claims may be. They're dead in law, listed as civil mortuus. These are principles of law that didn't originate with European, they originate with us in civilization itself. It's called honoring your mothers and your fathers that your days may be long upon the earth land. Meaning that you can't claim no land and you're claiming some other man's name. Not unlike some other people in the Second World War claim to be somebody that they're not. And Hitler nationalized Germany. He said, go home to your own mom. Then they had to start making things up again. They had to make lies, didn't they? So the same thing applies with these people here who don't know proper person. Your sister right in the back. Oh, but you want to ask, go ahead, sister, and then after you ask,
I was just going to say, I've been studying a lot. I'm 55, and I just, I've been becoming conscious in the last couple of years, but I don't know what different codes and, just learning that stuff. But I do, one thing that has helped me is that I understand that the corporation, American, the corporation only cares about commerce, and it's like.
No, let's back up.
Well,
Let's back up. Let's slow down and back up. Because what we don't want to do is when you start cross-talking, I know where you're going, but if I let you continue and not correct you, we're not fixing the very problem that we're talking about.
Okay.
We're talking about standing in, in other words, you can't serve two masters.
Right.
You can't argue an allodial argument while standing in a feudal court.
This is a great example.
Are we clear?
Yeah.
So, remember this. The corporation entity can't talk. It does nothing. Don't ever accuse corporations of doing anything. Talk about the owners. If you don't know a name, say the owners and beneficiaries of such and such corporation. So you would say the owners, as an example, for one of the registers. You might say Barton, who's one of the registers for the United States Corporation Company.
Okay.
Right? And you name some names, or you say the owners of the United States Corporation, and you would not say of America, because America is not a country, it's not a corporation. That's your land estate.
That's right.
This is another trick on what you call semantic linguistics, where they get people who they know don't know geography, because they train them, keep accusing their own land of doing things to people. America did this to the black man. Both statements are wrong. And the American corporation. That's general.
Right, yeah.
The United States Service Corporation, operating on American soil. Its owners do such and such and such a thing. They don't deal with law, though they're obligated to the law. They deal with human trafficking, and you can call that commerce. Might sound wordy, but that's what you should be saying. Failure to do any door that this is how they operate. Any door that you leave open, they coming in. Don't go to sleep with your window up, and don't go in the cave without turtleneck sweaters, because you come out with passion marks.
still trying to learn.
But that's how it works, you know, because vampires, they, you know, you saying, oh, I just like this
What-
top. You're going in the cave and everything's going on there, coming on out. So, they stick on the necklace or anything. Vampires have got you.
But I do understand.
That's how it works. And understand, remember, they're operating on unum sanctum. The arrogance that Europeans use, that our people keep calling prejudice, is the assumption that if you're black, you're dead. Are we clear? In law, under Roman law, Moors are declared dead until proven otherwise. The designation is Negroes, blacks, coloreds, and Indians, all which are fictitious names made by the Europeans. If they can get you to agree to be any of them, they have a jurisdictional claim because they created those fictions.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And so when you're speaking, and what we do here at the House of Reawakening Minds, we pull each other's coattails.
That's good.
And when I do it, you do the same thing with me. Because we all slip. You know, because we all have to help each other.
That's right. Tom.
Go ahead, sis.
So I started responding, and one thing I started doing was addressing like how they've been capitalizing my name, like the hypothecation, the straw man. So I started getting mail back, and now they don't capitalize it anymore. They write it, grammatically correct.
Exactly.
And I started reporting it to mail fraud,
Because it is.
And I just wanted to know, what should be my next response. Okay, so they stopped hypothecating. Well, they didn't stop, but they stopped grammatically spelling my name wrong.
Oh, now, the other deal is, what is the duty and responsibility of the nationals and citizens? I'll give you yes, you're absolutely correct. You already know that. I wanted her to answer. But what is the duty of the nationals and citizens of any nation? As a matter of fact, we brought this up in the first paragraph when we did this treatise. The duty and obligation of all nationals and citizens of any nation state is to enforce the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution. That's your first civic duty. That's not optional. That's a duty. You know and I know that that's not the training that our people have been given, is it? Is it? However, it doesn't remove the fact that it's still their duty. You know how an obligation exists whether you know it or not? This is why they say ignorance of the law is no excuse. Like there's no excuse for you not knowing your bloodline, your pedigree. Now, is it not true? Is it not true? Thank you, brother. Is it not true that in our communities, you can go in any direction in our community? You can't go 4 blocks without finding a church, mosque, or some kind of synagogue.
That's right.
In the poorest of communities.
That's right.
Is that true? And these people boast about special personal relationship with God, Jesus, the Lord, the 3 Lords in one, and whatever. They got Jesus' personal iPhone. He got the latest one, the one that nobody got yet. He got an Apple that nobody got, and they got the special number because they got a special relationship, a personal relationship with Jesus' iPhone. They don't even know their bloodline. You don't know all that's called contempt. It is. And this is where, even when you look in the Septuagint or the Bible or the Holy Book, it says, how dare you claim to love a God you do not see and love not your brothers and sisters whom you see by the day. That principle applies in common law. We're sitting around here as people always talk about gods and devils and don't know our bloodline. In law, you're already in contempt. Look at the common law definition of common law in law books, and you'll see in the heart of it, that's the nature of it, your attachment to the ancient traditions and customs of your ancient mothers and fathers from time immemorial. That's what trumps the common law. That's what trumps the Roman law and the canon law. And under the canon law, that straw man or that Sister QV trust or that's related to that world of estate that the Pope set up is predicated on that. That's that 14th Amendment thing that's operating. It's not a new thing. They'll use different names and different forms, but the principle it does not change. The principle is Rome is ruling, Rome declared themselves God of the earth. You're their product, you're declared dead until proven otherwise. Therefore, you're Negro, black, and colored. All names which delude to servitude, none of which ties you to the human family or to your estate. It is your duty and responsibility to honor your mothers and fathers and retie that tie. You see the point? Now, when you do on one point, now that is not all. You know how when we say you fix some of it? Well, what is your job? And that your is us plural. You're supposed to call them on their obligation to that Constitution. So that would be Article 3, Section 2, diversity of citizenship. Because there's an assumption of an obligation on your part, assuming you to be a U.S. citizen, though they know that you're not. Now, under the assumptions of the Christian black codes, a U.S. citizen is stopped. And so they assume you to be stopped. So what they want to do is talk you back into contract on another level. Because remember, the contractual operations of Forum Sanctum is multi-layered. And that the 6QB trust is only one. So you step out of that. Now, what is your appellation? What's your appellation? Say that?
I am Johnny Beck.
All right, and that's what's on the record, right?
Well,
No, don't do that well, son. No, that's fact. Now, this is a lesson. This is very important. No, this is a lesson. Please, look, this is a lesson. It is sort of like we're fixing things. And in order to fix things, we have to come at you like the adversary would. If you're asked, what's 2 and 2? And you start saying, well, according to, immediately you're incompetent. How much is 2 and 2? Get the mic. You wouldn't say it's 4, you would say 4. You would not add adjectives. You'd be direct. In the law, that's what you want to do. And that's what I'm saying of it. Are we clear? So that's what I'm saying. So the duty of the nationals and citizens is to be in your proper person. That sets up your argument. That sets up the capacity for you to have a right to argue. Are we clear? Now, so the next thing is you hold them to their obligation. What is their obligation? As fiduciaries. Since they're assuming a fiduciary position. Of course, you know they're operating as FOFAs. But you bring them back to the common law and to the trust. And so you will hold them to what? Their oath of ethics and their constitutional oath. That's the next argument. You see, and as soon as they start or continue to breach, then you're supposed to make a report to the consul. However, we have not been enforcing the law, so we haven't had consular venues. But that's our obligation to have been doing that. Because anyone who knows constitutional principles knows that the leaders or the representatives of the people are put in power to make law and enforce law if they live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known by the members of the nation state. Which means everybody's obligated to be aware and keep their so-called leaders in order. And if they're in breach, the same rule applies. So it ain't like the work hasn't been done if we haven't been enforcing it and suffering the consequences. When you read the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nation, you'll see where the prophet talked about that if we don't carry out the law or enforce that Constitution as said, the worst is yet to come. And what you see a lot of people coming into this Moorish movement now because they're getting screwed when they should have been in it all the time. It's their culture. It's their, and this is where others who have had this knowledge and who have misrepresented this movement as if it's a belief system, when it's an issue of a state and bloodline.
They're coming in at the point of the sword.
They're coming in because Rome is taking their stuff.
Right.
Or calling them on their sharecropping agreement. and they thought they was buying a house. You see the point? So the point that I'm making is we want to cognitively change our language and choose our words carefully. That's really what I'm saying to you. And yet I understood where you were going with it. But what we have to do in our studies is correct that while don't let it go on. We've got to break the bad habits. Because whereas we can accept it here, in the real world, that's like getting in the ring and starting to take selfies and the bell ain't rang yet. The only red bell will be ringing in the middle of the ground is your head. With a couple of jabs to the right. You know what I mean? And so in the real world, where you and that's us plurally, continue the connotative linguistics that we keep telling you to stop doing, they take advantage of it, whereas we are sitting here discussing with you, trying to stop you from doing it. So we're trying to break a bad habit, telling you it's a damaging tool. It's a designed tool, which means it's a tool that your enemy gave you to use to keep getting you screwed when you communicate with them. All right? So now, I want you to finish what you're saying, but I want you to change your language. Well, give them the mic back.
I've sent all things to the district courts and, corrected my status. And then they'll send me something back trying to tell me that I didn't fill out things correctly, or if I go to complain to authorities, their agents, they don't know who I am, so it's like it's not the proper venue. So
yeah, of course, if it's not the proper venue, they tell you they don't have jurisdiction, and you're supposed to know what the jurisdiction is.
Right.
yeah, so I'm just
No, listen, slow down, because we're doing this for other people.
Yes.
They're telling you that you're.
Great question.
Yes. Stay with it.
Yeah.
See, because you're teaching other people while you're doing this. That's why I'm doing this. I'm not interjecting you. I want you to stay clear on what you're doing. And recognizing when they're telling you one thing in other words. They're telling you they have no jurisdiction. However, the matter is still pending, and either you're going to deal with it properly or they will take jurisdiction. And it ain't going to be in your favor. Because it's back to the first paragraph. It is the duty and obligation of the nationals and the citizens to enforce the Constitution. That's what we opened up with tonight. That means that responsibility is on you and your community. Right? So now, you really put them on notice, although they already knew that you're more. Now, what you're doing is called an aberrament of jurisdiction. So when you have a nationality card, that's an aberrament of jurisdiction. When you did an affidavit in relationship to the district court, it's really not a court because it's not Article 3.
Wow.
talking about the one that's on 601 Market.
Now, what do we say? Now let's back up. Now let's back this up to the beginning of the thing. I want you to look at this. Now, and this is, and I know that you mean well, and I understand it because we've all filed papers with them, but what the paper was. It an affidavit claim? Was it a motion claim? All of these things make a distinction, and there's an assumption when you're actually supposed to pull them into the common law venue by notice, within that notice. Go ahead. Now, pre-March 27, 1861, post-March 27, 1861, explain that. Get in your mic.
You were saying that,
No, not what I'm saying. Look at the board. Read that.
pre-March 27, 1861
And read next to it.
versus post-March 27, 1861.
Now explain it.
Pre, they were acting constitutional. They was following constitutional laws.
de facto. So therefore, you were dealing with foreign European agents from the Barristers Association of England with their branch here in North America, looking for an allodial outcome and probably expecting it. And they're telling you, this is not the venue that you think you're in. You know that. Now, if you're not going to pull them to the obligation, then they consider your claim waived. The fact that we have not been active among ourselves, that's still our responsibility. In other words, the absence of Article 3 Consular Court diversity of nationality is called diversity of citizenship, the enforcement of that Constitution. This is primal to the nationals and citizens. And nobody can say that, no, y'all even tell these people that the worst is going to come if y'all didn't enforce it, which is what we're dealing with today. And so the fundamental civic instruction that we're given is instruction that should have been given 60, 70 years ago in them temples. But they betrayed the prophet. And it's called the big sellout, and nobody wants to talk about that because they want to save the images of a lot of people. When it's actually suffering, the whole nation is suffering from it, including Europeans are now suffering from it. That's why you see a lot of Europeans now start telling the truth. Although they don't go all the way through the door, they tell them to rock the boat a little bit, but they pull out the plugs. The deal of this is that we want to get us correct. Are we clear? So now, what you want to do is start putting liens on them. Commercial, fiduciary, breaches of commercial, administrative, fiduciary breach of trust. Are we clear? Are we clear? So what we want to do now, as single unit beings, the battle is harder. So we're trying to get us to act like a nation, which is because that's where the obligation is to, and start enforcing the Constitution, because that's where their obligations are. This is why you see the Europeans offering site drafts, HMOs, UCCs, dedicating the birth, everything to try to get you from doing everything else but enforcing that Constitution. As the wake-up comes, you see the point? And if we can discipline ourselves enough to get with intelligent people around us, organize, and start executing, everything is not going to change overnight, but a lot will change overnight. More than if you kept a record, you'd be amazed how much you can change things simply by enforcing that constitutional principle and being correct. And when you've got people around you that are competent, believe me, they'll still act arrogant, but believe me, they'll be acting different. And that's what I'm seeking from you. And so what you want to do is get people around you conscious. And then become active and activate Article 3, Section 2. Was that in your thought line? Was that in line of your thoughts to do? Yeah. Yeah. So you want, and what we want to do with all of us. We're going to start in the future giving you incremental knowledge on commercial liens, on how to start putting liens on these people. All right? And the other thing that you want to do some research, get the bond numbers and the carriers of those bonds of these people, and understand that they're always going to hide this information. However, like anything else in research, you're going to take the duty and responsibility of doing that research and make sure you share it with people around you. We should be in the different territories and districts, areas or regions of the country, having databases that show the surety bond numbers of every person operating in the area that claims to be a policeman, everyone that claims to be a congressman, Anyone doing business must have a surety bond and then find a carrier. And also you'll make a note of those who don't expose that information, because that's a felony not to have it. But what it does, it shows you and exposes the U.S. democracy platform. Are we clear? And it also kills our naivety about the system of operations. Are we clear? Because we need to stop being naive. Are we clear? And we also got to recognize why we need each other. Meaning that you can be right, and they will try to override you because you're working as a single unit.
Right.
You know when they say no man's an island? That principle? They know that you're right. But the sovereignty belongs to the nation. Although your single unit sovereignty is recognized under international law, you have limited argument. You make a strong argument, you can fix a lot of things, but the issue is family, the issue is nationality. It's why Raleigh says, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. But in declaring your nationality, that's an adverse claim to the assumed jurisdictional operations of the unum sanctum doctrine of discovery, which is absolutely in operation in North America. You look at all land grabs, they're operating the doctrine of discovery. And they always rule against the Aboriginal people. And they gentrify the communities. And if you say, I got a mortgage for a sharecropping agreement. No, it ain't. That means I bought something. You're incompetent. You know, and these are things that we really need to get clear with. It's too easy to teach the truth. Our people spend generations teaching beliefs and lies and get upset when a little bit of truth gets in the platform. When that should be all that we're about, dealing with truth. Because that's what's going to fix things, are we clear? And when you're dealing with an enemy, whenever you don't tell the truth, they consider you're lying. Even when that truth is in your favor. They will take any flaw that you have or demonstrate and consider incompetence and abandonment. If you go look at public records, go look at public records at foreclosures, and you'll see this word constantly. It won't say lack of payment. It'll say abandonment. People can be in the property physically, and they'll write letters and say that the property is empty with the people in it.
That's right.
What they're saying is that they're being the civil litter mortuus. Now, you need to know that that's an unum sanctum statement. See, but when you know these things, you respond with another level of intelligence. You see what I'm saying? You don't get upset and start talking about racism and prejudice.
Right.
You start dealing with, let us not assume that I'm Negro, black, and colored. See what Drew always says, you're not Negro, black, or colored, or Ethiopian. Declare your nationality. That's what it means. It's diversity. You must make an adverse claim to the assumed unum sanctum operations that is absolutely instituted into all institutions in the Western Hemisphere, particularly North America.
You got a question right here, sir.
Go ahead. Islam says.
I had a general question. I know a lot of people around me that's claiming black color, the codes, and they don't want to turn from what they pretty much been brainwashed with.
Oh, well, this is the answer to that. Involuntary servitude is unlawful. Involuntary servitude. However, some people want to be slaves. And you will, now let's make this very clear.
It's a difficult situation because these people are first.
Everything is difficult. Now, this is the point. All right, let me put it in another way for these people and for your reason. For your reason. Your statement is said with a tone of care, which means there's some consideration and concern on your part, which means you want things to be better for them. And you would like for them to properly comprehend the importance, and they indicate that they don't have a knowledge of the importance. and they want to dismiss the issue or say it's difficult, right? Now, well, it's good. You know, in other words, now this is the whole point. This is the whole point. This is law too. Keep this in mind. This is what Drew always said. If you can't convince them that they're not Negro, black, or colored, there's no need to tell them anything else. Now, what you can give them, I'll tell you this, and they can be lazy if they choose to be. Executive Order 11490, and if they still want to be black, they're on the way to being exterminated, whether they know it or not. They have a right to that, which means that if someone tells you the truth and you reject that truth, you have a right to reject that truth. It doesn't mean you're right, but you have a right to reject the truth. Everybody don't want the truth. But also, the position is this. For the millions of people who want the truth, who've been denied the truth, make the effort to give it to them. And those who don't want to hear it, whosoever will, let them hear it. Whosoever will, let them come. And whatever they will get. And if they choose Rome, they think Rome's going to give them a sandwich. See, because they say, and this is our people in general, I don't fear nobody but Allah. I don't fear nobody but Jesus and God in heaven and the Lord of the stars and shit. Now the real deal is they fear Rome.
That's right.
Rome is their God. Recognize when they're really saying that. See, because the man or woman who really fears injustice for justice, the Creator, or someone representing the Creator principle, not man. He fears man, and that's his God. As man unfolds, his God unfolds. And what most of these people are saying is that, yeah, I kind of hear you, but don't put me under that pressure, because you know I'm honoring Rome. That's really what they're saying. Because the truth of the matter, you can take them to a child dictionary and show them that they're not black. It's not confusing. These people know that human beings have nationalities. They know you can go in any major city across the world, less more, in North America. Any major city, and you'll see the flags of nations on both sides of the street in all major cities of the world. And if they can't stand under their free national flag and recognize it, they are stateless persons. And for them to keep talking about gods and devils and the ancient Bibles and the ancient Qurans and the Uastis and the Septuagintas, Latin and Hebrew, and the four Vedas, and your Urantia book, they talking all of this spirituality that they keep claiming to have and talking about they fear Rome, is because Rome is their God. And that's who they're going to get, Rome. Which is why our people are in the shape they are in now, with Roman names, don't have no rights, no property, and they come under the Christian black codes. That's what the suffering is right now. They don't know that Rome's planning on killing them. Islam, Dr. Nailah, give her the mic. Now, and that's how you deal with that. Because they don't want it. If you tell somebody the truth and give them a reference point, and they reject the truth, they're where they need to be. They just don't know they're getting ready to get fried. Say again?
11490.
Executive Order 11490. That's called King Alfred Rex 84 Military Operations. Exterminating such persons who are stateless persons. Because they're not part of the human family, they didn't kill them. Just like they do some other people kept claiming to be somebody that they're not. Remember Second War? You ever heard of this guy named Hitler? You ever heard that he nationalized Germany? And some people were claiming to be somebody that they're not, and they start barbecuing them. They heard about a nationality, didn't they? Even though they made it up, didn't they? And robbed somebody else's land. And it's creating problems from that day to this very day. Wars over the world because of that lie. Well, if you look at Executive Order 11490, that same technology that they learned from that is they're turning on these people here that call themselves minority.
And black.
And they want to be black. They get right. And as a matter of fact, they say that they're going to use vaporization techniques. This is advanced technology, so they don't have to worry about the barrels of putting a lot of bodies in. They're going to use vaporization techniques. I got it. As a matter of fact, it's on the computer. You want to see it?
It's called King Alfred.
You want to just for your, we'll get with Dr. Nailah too. Yeah. You've never heard of King Alfred recipe before? Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about cooking some people of color. They're using the same technology, poisons, biological warfare, etc., that they learned in the Civil War. And this is King Alfred, and this is a synopsis of it. Yes. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when you were talking in terms of people not recognizing who we are, where things are written in posterity, in the Geneva Bible, 1599, the Moors are mentioned, which predates the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. But in the Geneva Bible, 1599, Moors are mentioned. M-O-O-R, black Moors, but Moors, and Moors in there.
Let's go to European history. The Renaissance. The Renaissance, Europe coming out of the Dark Ages. They tell you Moorish history. All secret societies around the world, Europeans or Asiatic, got a Moorish fetish. They don't hide it. All lodge names of Masonic lodges around the world got Moorish names. You can go right here to Washington, D.C., and see the pillars of stone in the George Washington room. All Moorish names. All the so-called founding fathers had Korans. A lot of the congressmen, even to this day, secretly take their oaths of office on the Koran. Why? Because they're staying in Morocco. Take this dictionary right here, Child's Dictionary, to show that black's an adjective, and right under that black and Moors, say there's black, people called black, Negro black and colored are Moors. Right in the Child's Dictionary. This dictionary, that dictionary, that dictionary. All scholars know this. Let us stop allowing people who know this stuff to keep playing dumb and sacrificing the next generations. And here's the point. If somebody doesn't want to honor their mothers and fathers, I'm not arguing with them. There's too much work to do. Let them be toast.
Little commercial, just want to make sure for anybody who wants to get food from Drop Squad Kitchen from Sister Abundance, she's getting ready to pack up.
I got my
so you need to go now, get over here. Delicious vegan cuisine, so please make sure you see her before she has to swim home. So she wants to
swim home.
Boring.
Now, see this is. Now this is King Alfred. This is more extensive. This is more extensive, and excuse me, I'll bring this up just a little bit. This is an exotic map. Now, all of your politicians, Masons, secret societies, etc., they know these are names, real names of the cities in North America that you think is the United States. Now, you see that? See that Morocco in the middle? You see Siberia? You see Mexico? Sorrento? Atlantis? Etc. They already know that they changed the maps, but all military know this, all your so-called black leaders, imams, rabbis, all of these people with degrees know this. This is some of the same information that Malcolm found out that French Muslim schooled him when he went over there talking that black and white stuff and think because he made the Hajj that he's coming out of the European jurisdiction. Maghreb is Morocco, the most extreme west. You're left home, brother. Everybody knows this but our people. Are we clear? And you're the target. When I say you, that's a you in plural. This is a military document. All politicians have this. This is what they study and plan to gentrify cities. When you see gentrification going on in cities, that's genocide activity. They're slow walking these people, killing them off the land. They don't get it yet.
It's like we Nassau right here, right?
Of course. Yes.
Nassau.
Yes. In other words, where people think is around the world, Paris, Europe, right here in North America. And you are the great Masonic secret. You're the secret. In your face.
Yeah.
That's what they're telling you in the Matrix movies. That's what they're telling you in the Wild Wild West with Will Smith. That's what they're telling you in the Black Knight or something like that with Martin Lawrence. True Lies with Anthony Hopkins, True Romance or whatever it is. Robin Hood with Morgan Freeman. They're telling you over and over again. The Bell with Sidney Poitier. Yes. National Treasure. Oh, yeah, both of them. They're telling you, he's right here, under your feet. Old Quran, your great seal in the corner of the paper that the women see, matriarch see, the woman finds it. All these years, nobody notices the watermark of the great seal. See the point? Let me small this up, and I want to get to a part here. I want you to see. Now look at this. I want you to just look at this part, sis. Now, see the second paragraph? Just look at these two paragraphs, right? Now this is military operations. Now notice how they're talking these are Joint Chiefs of Staff. These are all the military heads together. That's what a Joint Chiefs of Staff is. That means that the head of the Navy, head of the Marines, head of the Air Force, and all admirals and stuff at a meeting. This is them talking. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now go down a little bit. Yeah. No, go up a little bit. Let's take there. Note at the appropriate time to be designated by the president, the leaders of some of these organizations. That's all of these Negro black organizations are infiltrated. Are we clear? All of them, not some of them. All of them. Are we clear? Only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency. That means they're going to give those Negro speeches, keep hope alive and all that stuff to keep the natives from getting restless. That means when that don't work no more, they go into emergency measures and start disappearing people. All right? So working with local public officials during the first critical hours. Who's all these public officials? That's all these politicians that you think don't know. They're operating military operations against our people. This is where you see all this destruction coming from. It ain't coming from no demons. It's coming from these politicians with the reverends on the corners as spies. Those are spy centers. Are we clear? All other leaders. That's critical hours. They're talking about states of emergency. All other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled list of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use minority leaders designated by the president in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are what? Say it together, y'all. Agents with central and federal. And we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal King Alfred in all its aspects. Logically, though, what you tell us is genocide war. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. Why? Because they're Negroes, they're tokens. They don't have no power, they're tokens. They're called overseers. These people think that stuff ended in 1865. Them Negro leaders are tokens. Have no authority whatsoever. They're state property. So this is how the Europeans are what? They're dealing with them as to what their real status is, not what these people who are out to damn lunch that don't understand fundamental government because they got a bunch of beliefs that don't damn work. They're living in a false matrix and they're too hypocritical to deal with truth and honor because they have no honor in them. And they don't know they get ready to get cooked. They think they're safe. Oh, I fear Rome, so I'm going to submit to Rome. Well, I ain't arguing with them. I'm going to tell people who want it. You know, because the ones that want it ain't getting it. You know what I mean? There's people around this country and in company holes all around the world that need this information, that have honor, that are willing to honor their mothers and fathers. That's what you seek out. The ones who don't want to honor their mothers and fathers, they have a right to serve Rome, and Rome has a right to serve them on a platter. And that's what they're going to do too. As a matter of fact, right in the document, they call them steaks on the table. Yes, they do. Call them steaks on the table. Minority members of Congress will be able to see this once. This move is not without precedent in American history. Now, precedence is established law, or like when some major thing comes that they set as fair decisive. Now, pay attention to this preliminary memo and show you what all military operations and politicians already know. But guess who don't know? Our people with their miseducation. Now, you deliver this to your friend. Preliminary memo, Department of Defense. Now, that was the Attorney General, right? This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy. Read this next line with us. For he is bound to the continent. Did it say country? Bound to the continent by heritage, and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in the other countries. So they think they're going to some other country and they're home. They don't even know they're home. You see the point? They've been lied to by Europeans and their own people. And everybody in the world knows this but them. And if they don't want to be themselves and make right a claim to their estate, they have that right too. See, involuntary servitude is unlawful. But if they want to be a voluntary serf to Rome and think that they're going to get a reward, Rome was plotting on cooking them. Right up there, just like they did Geronimo. Geronimo went around talking about, put down your arms, we make deals with the Christians and stuff. We don't want to be fighting more and more sandwiches and stuff, right? And then as soon as they got most of the different territories to give up their arms, they took his weapon, threw him in jail, and they used his bones in that symbol that you see, skull and bones. That's Geronimo's bones. Yes, it is. That's the thanks all traitors get. Think they're going to be rewarded. No Negro leader guys and civil rights marcher guys under the 14th Amendment go to a retirement home. When the Europeans finish with them, he neutralizes them when they're no longer useful. Are we clear? So what do you see? These people are bound to this continent and don't even know their home. And everybody knows it. And this is not Negro land. It's not Blackadonia. It's not Colombia. It's Morocco. And if they don't want to be themselves, they have that right. It's called the Christian Black Codes. And what do they do with the Christian Black Codes? They destroy the family, make sure the women are single, and they steal their babies, some of which they eat. Now that's a fact. Now they keep playing these, I don't want to be myself. Fine. I ain't arguing with them. We got too much work to do. There's too many people that want liberation. There's too many people that think that things can be better and want to get involved with people that are trying to make things better for the generations to come. Since most of these past generations have been so damn selfish that they've been sacrificing the younger generations and act like the younger generations raised themselves when they did it to them with their abandonment, with their fake beliefs that they adopted from that ain't got nothing to do with Jesus, Muhammad, or Allah, got everything to do with Rome. And they don't get religion, they got dogma. And they hide behind it, hiding from responsibility. This is a call to responsibility, a call to enforce that Constitution, a call to honor your mothers and your fathers, and to claim your lost estate, so that the world will stop buying them U.S. Treasury bonds and you stop losing all of your right of claim. Because we've abandoned our right of claim and we've abandoned our responsibility. So this is just a synopsis in King Alfred. And in other parts of it, you'll see where they talk about people want the benefit of science, but too damn lazy to study, and all this stuff. They say they're like steaks on the table of the meat and will be treated accordingly, which means they're going to mercilessly cook, burn, screw, poison, virus up, inject them, children with viruses, talk about what's helping them, and these people keep delivering their babies to these same Romans that did it to their forefathers. They ain't learned yet. They're considered cattle and nothing more. Now, they don't want to be themselves. Fine, that's their choice. Involuntary servitude is unlawful. But if they want to volunteer, guess who ain't arguing with them? You got too much work to do with people who want to honor their mothers and fathers who never had that opportunity. A lot of people didn't never have this information because it's kept masonically secret. And most people won't talk. Well, the House of Reawakening Minds, you're getting it free. You know what I mean? Now, you can do with it what you will. However, those who hear cannot say that they were not told. Because we not only tell, we show documentation. And they can deny it all they want to. But guess what? The world ain't going away just because these people are in denial. It's just easier grass to cut. As far as the Europeans are concerned, it's easier grass. You know how they show them cartoons with the ostrich? You know, here comes the dinosaurs and stuff, and the ostriches are running. You know what I mean? And then they say, oh, let's hide. And they stick their head in the sand. They stick their head in the sand. They come up and start saying, damn, it's breezy out there. Where'd he go? The monster left. And they ain't got no feathers on their keisters and one keister left. What's happening to these people? See, it is sort of like this. Our people who really serve Rome, they hide behind the name Jesus. They really fear who they call their great white father. They'll just say white man to have a sense of dignity. He's their God. Book of Thessalonians. Don't read Book of Thessalonians 1 and 2. All right? That's them. Right? Rome is their God, and they're acting accordingly. So they have a right to be wrong. In other words, his will. Whatever a man willeth, whatever a man thinketh, so is he. When a man unfolds, his God unfolds. They're telling you who their God is. And again, just like as an example, right? Child's Dictionary, right? Right? Black. Child's Dictionary. Good. Now, so the Child's Dictionary, first thing you see in the word is part of speech, correct? Correct? Yeah. Yep. What part of speech? So black's an adjective, right?
Correct.
So black's an adjective, third grade. Let's talk third grade grammar. So an adjective is a modifier. We talk about third grade grammatication, right? That means we're not talking junior high school order. We're not talking high school order. We're not talking college order. We're talking about elementary school, right? Now, I want you to recognize why some people call persons who think human beings are crayons, why they call them boys and girls. Third grade grammar. So, Is an adjective a proper noun? What's the proper noun? Third grade grammar. What's the proper noun?
A person, place, or thing.
All right. So now third grade grammar. So this person, place, or thing. Black's an adjective. So an adjective describes, it does not identify. So how can a scholar teach a child that black is African identity? We haven't even gone into definition yet. Now look right beneath there, right? And so it shows you the morphology of words, doesn't it? And then you have a compound word here. What's that compound word?
Black or
If you want to hear it,
black or more.
break it down.
Black or more?
Break it down. Read
A
it.
Negro.
What?
A dark-skinned person.
So all these people with dark skin that keep on making this huge stuff of we're people of color, of melanated complexion and stuff, because they're trying to avoid taking the responsibility of honoring their mothers and fathers when they're clearly Moors. That's a child's dictionary. Is that deep scholarly research? Is that in the ordinary dictionary? Does that take 10 semesters of college education and research and digging up 5 pyramids in Africa? Thank you very much. So what do you think, why should the rest of the civilized world recognize or respect these people that keep claiming to be somebody they're not, and then come under the black codes and then they want to march all over the place when everybody feels sorry for them, when the whole world knows they're Moors? Go into European history, the Renaissance, do the research, and tell you more history about yourself, but the people who want to be black and hate their own bloodline won't acknowledge it. It's not that the information is not available, is it? It's available, is it? It's not deep, is it? It didn't say some, it says any. That's inclusive across the board, isn't it? Now, is it not hard for people to understand the Dungy case that Lincoln did in 1855? And the Dungy case, the guy was Portuguese. But what was the case argued? That he was a Moor. And that's what won the case. It's not a new argument, is it? Now, the point of it is, people who keep pretending, you notice that word, pretending, that they don't understand this, is only imbeciles and traitors. Now you understand why other people that come to this country, nobody trusts so-called black people. They're called conversos. Because a person who does not respect their own bloodline and pedigree can't respect another human being. They're not trustworthy. Well, they don't like my color. It's not a color, it's a status. It's a brand. And so I'm saying that to you, that when people get like that, we have compassion because we want things to be corrected. But don't waste your time feeling sorry for them. Because these are the same people that over history that have sold their babies out. Those are the people that become what you call the Judases. And those are the ones that Europeans seek out to betray others. Are we clear? So never take it too personal, because there will be two in the field. One will be taken and the other will be left. And that's the reason why. That means don't take it too personal when you're dealing with principles. That's what that really means. You know what I mean? That's what that really means. That powerful. That's what it really means. When someone rejects the truth, that means you just ran into a dark part of their heart.
Right, so it's just flying to the part.
Exactly. They're telling you Rome is their God. Accept it. Don't get mad at them, but you accept it. You know what I mean? And you don't have to reject them, but accept where that is. But understand, this is how nature works. And this is true. When you tell someone the truth, and we talk about maxims, these are provable truths. Understand how nature works. And this is why even the European is careful, why he will tell you certain things he'll do to you before you, because he knows what's called laws of nature or divine law or karmic law. It's outside of what we like to believe, which means there's a consequence, a cause and effect. They reject the truth. Don't get in the way when the karmic hits them. Because as soon as you move, the invisible comes to teach them their lesson. And it ain't always pretty. So when they get it, don't feel sorry for them.
But that's what's happening in Yale, and that's why I'm informing them. Because they're seeking, they just got a letter the other day for supposedly it's over 25 years for education. So I'm telling them, saying, don't respond to it. It's over 25 years. If you want to go there legally, as they want to put it for the policy, it's over 7 years. It's not over a year early.
And it doesn't even matter. We talk about statute of limitations,
Right.
But it doesn't even matter. When you understand what we talked about tonight, it's an issue of jurisdiction altogether. It's a matter of impostorship altogether. It's a matter of understanding that the status correction is how you get out of that. You don't walk out of Rome's cave in a dead status. You either come to a living perpendicular or you're laying down. That's how it works. And they ain't taking no numbers. They operate on unum sanctum. And they're all members of the Roman Curia. All of them, and any corporate person of any corporation, any person of any of your municipalities, any of your mayors, anybody that's controlling any economics are direct members of the Roman Curia. Whether they're Knights Templars, Illuminati, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, ETC, Shriners, etc. All of them are. And they're all feeders. And they know, like Yeshua said, I come amongst my own, and it is they who receive me not. What is he talking about? Oh, they want Rome. Now they got Rome, and now they're mad because they're catching hell, aren't they? Well, the lessons aren't over yet. See, they forgot that they also have hair like lamb's wool and skin like burner's grass. They forgot they can go in that same book that they keep talking about they know. They don't know that book. And read Yeshua's great-great-grandmother, Ruth the Moabitess. They Moabite just like she is. No, but they don't want to be Moors. They want to be Europeans. Well, guess what? They get ready to get cooked. That's what King Alfred is all about.
Islam have an online question. Well, I guess I wanted to have a statement. They said they're asking because as a so-called Hispanic, I feel...
You got to know history, but continue the question.
Right. That's why I want you to clear that up.
Yes.
I feel very alone in this Moorish movement. So could you clear that so-called Hispanic up?
All right. Now, that's an assumption that Hispanic is an identity. That's made up too. Hispaniola is a name they give actually to Haiti, or what you call Haiti. And remember, the Caribs and the Arawak Moors of the South Gate were the first of the Moors that the Europeans falsely called Indians when they were trying to take over the Moorish trade routes. You got to know history. And then they divided Haiti in half under the Spanish Inquisition and called one half Dominica and then called the other half Haiti, etc. No different than they call the ones in the north Negro, Black, and Indians. Now, for the confusion that they have, what they would call Puerto Ricans ain't Puerto Ricans, they are Puerto Rican. And most of them are Taino. And they're Moors mixed with some French, etc., or some Europeans. Keep in mind, under the Spanish Inquisition, when they came to the Atlantis Islands, and particularly with the navigation of the Nino by Pedro the Moor, look at the European records, Columbus's ships were navigated by Moors because the Europeans didn't know how to sail. And so you'll see, according to Columbus's laws, Pedro or Moore navigated the Nino. They took them to the Atlantis Islands. They never hit the mainland. They slaughtered the people on the island, and they had to gather people from the land of flowers, which you call Florida now, and other areas to re-people before they came. And what they did, according to the Cretan customs, they murdered the men, most of the men, and they used the young Moorish girls as sex slaves. And this is how you get what you call your Hispanic stock. That's what that Hispanic stock is. In fact, the matter is, the language that they call Spain is not Spanish. It does not exist. That they made that up to cover up Moorish history. And Latin is Moorish Latin that they call Spanish. And so the deal of it is, for those who don't know, those who have read my book, Moors and Mexicans, when the Mexicans were doing TV, they were doing TV interviews in New York a few years back, because the Europeans were calling Mexicans aliens coming to North America. They sent messages to the Puerto Rican community to get in touch with me for permission to use excerpts from that book. And if you all go on the websites, you'll see where Mexicans are showing posters, which I'll show you all later, not tonight, but I'll show you later, where they're showing posters where they're telling the European, if you know your history, we're the ones at home. Now the deal of it is including, you got communities of Puerto Ricans and Mexicans all over the country who are claiming their Moorish nationality, including, remember the movie 300? I forget, he died already. He's a chieftain of the Navajo. That's a series of tribes. And he used to call me every week. I think they killed him, really. But anyway, they're Moorish nationality. Mexicans in Sacramento, when I go to California, most of the people that deal with security at the universities are Mexicans, and they be wearing their Moorish fez. It is our people who are the ones out to lunch, who are disconnected. They're the ones that don't recognize their bloodline. You can go to Washington, D.C. right here, and they move the picture around, where you see the president of Mexico, 1857, with his fez on, with Allah and jewels on his fez, the president of Mexico, 1857. None of this stuff is secret. It's only secret to these people who insist on being niggers and black, and they're in contempt, and they don't know that they're ready to get burned. It ain't us. Their Roman God, who they keep on worshiping, is plotting on exterminating them. That's what King Alfred is really all about. You know what I mean? And my point is, we have so much work to do with honorable people that want to honor their mothers and fathers, that have some integrity left in their heart. That's what this is really all about. In truth, what this is about is to try to save you can call the little or something left of the nation that's worthy to go into the fifth dimension or into the next generation. Because most of it is so contaminated that it needs to be destroyed in order to save what's good, what's left. And that's really what this, truthfully, to be blunt, that's what this is really all about. And so most of these people that take those positions got a self-righteous attitude, not knowing that they're a disgrace to humanity. We share this information out of love, but we owe them nothing. This don't need them, they need it. They may not recognize it. Now the problem of it is, as time passes, whatever camp they're standing in, that's where they are. And with the energy of Uranus and Saturn, as it is now, ruling the Aquarian constellation, there is no shadows. This is where you see the religious controversy where Raleigh says the sun stands at high noon. Are we clear? What the deal of it is, to close out, honor your mothers and your fathers that your days may be long upon the earth land, not some cloud like the Reverend said. This is the earth land. This is the kingdom. This is the estate. Reclaim your lost estate and learn those things necessary And we are teaching our people those things necessary to make them better citizens. And we already know that your position is AA, the national, first heir of the estate. And I close out saying thank you for visiting the House of Reawakening Minds. Hope you did some good. And hope you got some concept expansion on the tradition that we presented tonight. Because all of this information still leads back to one issue: your lost estate and your right of claim to that estate, your nationality and your birthright. I'll say grand night to you.
We want to thank Grand Sheik. We want to thank all of you for coming out, especially in this torrential downpour. We want to thank everybody that is watching and viewing online. We want to give a special thanks to all of our viewers, online viewers who have heeded our call to support the House of Reawakening Minds with their financial donations. As you know, our numbers have kind of been going down, and we want to make sure that we can compensate our lecturers and also have something to keep things going here at the House of Reawakening Minds. And Grand Sheik has been doing some awesome work in here. Sister Tara and I have been putting our little touch in here. Doesn't it look amazing in here now? You see the difference working. Only one person thinks it looks amazing in here. Thank you so much. But we appreciate your support. We want to remind you that on the 22nd of September, the etymology, the 8-hour etymology class with Brother Abdullah Talib Bey will be right here at the House of Reawakening Mind. 8 hours. When you come out, you will be an etymology scholar. You can either take that class here in person for 35 notes, or you can take it online for 25 and probably like $2, $1 and some cents fee. It goes along when you pay through Eventbrite. But you do not want to miss that etymology class. So that's one of the things as a low cost. One of the things that I like it, but I love it when Grand Sheik says, because they can't damn read. Well, now if we take that, after we take that, we will be able to read with an understanding and an overstanding of what is really being presented to us. So there's still time to sign up for that class. You can sign up. Can you do it here too? You can also sign up here and save yourself $1 and some cents if you do it. But it's online, so you don't have to be sitting in front of your PC. If you do it at home for 8 hours, or wherever you want to be, you don't have to be home. You can be, as long as you're mobile and can get on. Or here with us, and it's going to be wonderful to be here with us on the 22nd, that Saturday after next. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. This is a class that people go to at Temple University. That he teaches at Temple University. So he's going to be teaching it here. You're going to get an 8-hour course. So make sure before you leave that you get your name on the list that you're part of that class. Let me see. I think that's it. Oh, also we have some other upcoming things, but Friday next week we have Brother Abdullah. He will be back. It'll be the second Friday. He will be back next Friday. He was going to that class, and then Grand Sheik will be back the following week, and then after that we will have Brother Hannibal Bey. So, and I believe we have Brother Aaron Ellen all this month. We haven't scheduled it? Okay. But if you haven't been to any of Brother Aaron L's writ writing classes, you want to get here on one of those Saturday writ writing classes. He's been going over the basics, but we want you to be able to bring your writs. You know, a lot of you are writing writs, and the language may be wrong in them and so forth. And Sister Delilah and Brother Truth, they can vouch for this brother's skill. Bring your writs and let him look at it, because it just might be a language issue or something. You want to make sure that when you write, you read it right? Okay. So those are our announcements. Again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for your support. Those of you who can, always think about us, it would be one note. I thought if all the people are going to see this video, because in about the next hour, somebody's going to take it, put it on their Facebook, on their YouTube page, and we don't see that we had like 13,000 views. If everybody said one note, we can take care of everything for, we don't have to worry about anybody. But those of you who do support us, you know, and put a little extra in there. We do appreciate it. Even if you can't come, send us your love through PayPal and Cash App. We know you love us, and we know that when you do come back, it will be here. Islam? All right. Happy Holy Day, Moors, and please travel safely. It is very, very wet out there.